Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for more Survivalists, and in this case I have a pretty interesting knife review for you folks. This is the Ontario 498 Mod Survival knife. And yeah, I'm continuing with my obsession of the K-bar knife. For many years, I just didn't own one. I had other knives that interested me more, but I still have an appreciation for the classics. K-bar is definitely that. Remember though, K-bar is a brand name, and you have the Ontario, which is the one that it's the military issue knife for the U.S. Armed Forces, the knife that you probably associate with a K-bar, and you look at this and say, yeah, that's a K-bar knife. Well, yes, it's that design, but it's actually manufactured by Ontario, and the model is known as the 498 Marine Combat Knife. Although it fulfills those specifications by the U.S. military, which you would associate with the K-bar model. Now, this is a different take of this knife, and what Ontario does here, it's called a Mod Survival, 498 Mod Survival. You would say it's the same thing, except that you don't have the black paint in the handle. Yeah, at first glance it is. I leave the link below, folks, for this knife or this other one or the K-bar, whatever one I find. Sometimes I don't find the exact model, or it's out of stock or whatever. But whatever I find, I'll leave there with the links below. Same for my books. You'll find the links for all of that and other links useful down there below in the description of the video. This is maybe one of the more affordable K-bar type knives by Ontario, and I think it goes like for 40 bucks, 50 bucks, give or take. Not sure, depends on what price you find it at. But I know that at one time these were sold in Walmart, like you off the rack, you would get yourself the Ontario, made in USA. That's nice. And on the back you have some specifications: overall length 12 inches, blade length 7.1 inches, 18 centimeters, blade material high carbon steel, that's actually 1095, pretty certain about that. Blade hardness, that's 55, 57 Rockwell hardness, handle material leather, and it comes with an included sheath. So once you open the blister, which I already did, you have your knife. Well, first thing first, does the thing actually cut? Which is one of the first things you definitely want to check with a knife. And it kind of does. The edge is not all that. It could be a lot better. But for, you know, keep in mind, this is almost like a it cuts a little bit better closer to the tip, I guess, but I wouldn't say that's all that great. It does cut well enough for an utility type of knife. This edge is actually very similar to the one in the Marine Combat. You know, very rough edge, kind of gets the job done, not all that great, but there you have it. So differences, obviously enough, the main difference is here you have the exposed leather, here you have with this black paint, which goes all the way down to the cap. My assumption is that they probably submerged this in this tar black paint thing, so as to protect everything. And yeah, because this is also covered with the same paint or finish. Here it's exposed, so it's the phosphate metal, same with the blade. This is a phosphate finish, which is the exact same thing here. The other difference, even the markings, US Ontario on both of these, even the markings are the same. Now, you don't have this fuller, is it, that you have there? You don't have it here, and you don't have that bevel. That's bevel that you have here in the clip doesn't happen over here, and it's not sharpened. This is the U.S. military spec says it has to be a sharpened clip, so they have that in the Marine Combat. You don't have it here in the survival model. So what all of this does is basically make the knife cheaper, and in fact it should be cheaper, and it actually is cheaper. When you find these, usually you will find this one to be cheaper because it just has less process in its construction. So no sharpened clip, it's just like a drop point, and not a sharp clip either. Now on the other hand, you don't have the clip, but you have clearly a stronger tip because there's just more material there. This tip is gonna be obviously stronger than this one. So I think that the survival name is fitting for this case. So less steps in the manufacturing, but probably stronger, and you have more material here as well. I mean, practically speaking, you just have more steel here than you have here with this part. Of course, the weakest point of K-bar knives in general is a narrow tang. So if you're going to be abusing the knife, likely here is where it's going to be failing most likely. But again, as I've said in previous videos regarding the K-bar, keep in mind the historic context, the design. This is a classic knife. If you want to beat the crap out of it, get yourself a Glock bayonet knife. That would be more adequate than just torturing and destroying your nice K-bar knife. In terms of the sheath, again, leather material is not as resilient as plastic and such, but you have that nice classic feel, and it actually works very well. I just found one other video about this knife, which is kind of amazing because it should be a fairly popular model in the United States, but it just found one other video, and the guy that did the video was complaining that it just the snap didn't reach all the way. He was complaining about that. Look, twist it, tweak it a little bit. It is leather, folks. Leather does stretch, and if you do that soon enough, you'll find that it does actually fit. If you go doing this and you stretch it a little bit, you will find that yes, this actually does clip. But they do that so as to make sure that you have a very, very nice snug fit. They don't want this to start racking and getting loose, because once it does that, there you go. Once it does that, leather keeps on stretching a little bit. I've seen that that if it's a loose fit, if it's not as hard as you just saw what I tried to do there, if you don't have that, it just rattles a lot more and it gets loose. If you go with this tighter fit, once you reach that point and you leave it like that, little by little it's going to be stretching exactly to the amount of fit that you need, and you won't have any loose rattle thing going on there. So there's nothing wrong with this. It's just a matter of understanding the nature of the materials involved in the construction of the knife and the sheath. Okay, folks, I just think that some of the newer generations don't understand this sort of stuff, so it's worth clarifying. Leather is a little bit more of a flexible, natural material, of course. And once that's done, it fits perfectly well. Nothing goes on here, perfectly safe. You release it. Still, it has great retention as well. So you get your nice sheath. The sheath is actually exactly the same as in the Marine Combat, the exact same sheath. And it's not a bad one. It's actually quite good. And this is finished and treated so as to make it protected. One of the things that I've seen people complain about, if you can believe this, they're bitching about this cardboard white stuff getting stuck here. Man, people just like complaining. What is the big deal? You can probably scrap this off. People just complain because they have nothing better to do. So yeah, that's it. It's a classic knife. It's a nice, interesting little twist of the classic military issue K-bar by Ontario. And I actually like that it's a little bit longer. If you actually measure these, the Marine Combat 498, this is exactly 17 centimeters, maybe a millimeter more, 17.2 millimeters length. But when you look at this one, because it just didn't work on that clip, you have a little bit more metal, and it reaches to almost 18 centimeters of length. So it's a longer knife as well, just a little bit, but it's longer with a stronger tip. The leather thing, well, you can work on this yourself, find a solution. I actually like that you have this because it looks, I think it looks a little bit cooler, a little bit better. And if you just, invest a little bit of your time, some wax, some shoe polish even, those are good enough for us to, work on this a little bit and provide a bit more protection than just leaving it like that. I would not suggest that at all. Just using the knife without treating this first, I think that's a pretty bad idea, because especially leather in this way, in which it is cut like that, it is open, and all of these little, you see all the little holes and almost like a sponge. It would, anything in terms of water, humidity, sweat, it's going to be penetrating deep into that leather, and you definitely do not want that. So take a few minutes and put a little bit of wax, something that's going to be protecting that little leather a bit better. And trust me, if you do that and you take even minimal care of your knife, this knife is going to be lasting you a lifetime. Some folks like the idea of not going with a more industrial mass production Chinese knife. And yes, this is mass production as well, but the difference is it's mass produced in the United States, which should mean something for you. And besides that, it's manufactured in the United States, and it's a model that has been of huge historically significance for the country as well. So I at least get a little bit of extra pleasure in handling, using something with interesting history behind it. May that well be from whatever, maybe some other country that has a cool knife or whatever. I think that gives it an extra value, and that is certainly the case in one of the most iconic knives ever, the US military K-bar knife, or even one of the little variations, which would be the model Survival that I have over here. Folks, have an awesome day. Take care. See you in the next video.